marquee is completely caved in. The glass is broken out of the windows, of course. There's brick all over the streets. The people are still milling around. I suppose they're afraid of another quake possibly coming in. These things don't generally come singly. Sometimes they come by pairs. It's a bit difficult to drive through. The signs in many instances are hanging by a single wire. Over here I see the sweet shop. They've finally taken the candy out of the window. It was a rather tempting display. All you had to do was reach over. The glass is completely gone. Now we're stalled. Use a pun. The people are not paying any attention to the lights. I don't know why people have to get in a panic at a time like this. And it caused a great deal of difficulty. As far as we're personally concerned, we were standing in front of Crane's Cafe waiting for another person who was going in having lunch, when suddenly the streets began to buckle, and there was a rumbling noise around us, and the phenomenon expressed itself in a wildly waving building tops. As I remarked to Downing a moment ago, if anything that I've ever experienced that puts jelly in your knees, this situation certainly does. And for a long while afterwards, I wasn't entirely sure whether the ground was still waving and shaking or whether it was my knees doing the shaking. I think it was a little bit of both. But it was miraculous, just nothing short of miraculous. I saw bricks raining down around people, actually brushing their faces. I never saw anything like it. And yet, as far as I'm personally concerned, I saw no one hurt. As I looked up the street, I saw 3 or 4 people who had momentarily fainted from the shock of the situation. But all in all, up to this moment, I have received no reports of any injuries in Olympia itself. Frankly, I don't see how all this brick could have rained down in the streets without hurting someone. We certainly sincerely hope that no one was hurt. Right at the moment, we're stalled here at the corner of 4th and Capitol Way, trying to wait for the traffic to get by. There's certainly plenty of it, so that we can get out here on Capitol Way and we'll cruise up here and see how other things are looking. I understand the whole rear end of Mottman's is completely out, so that you can see right into the store. The buildings that I have seen down here, the one adjacent to Bettman's that was just torn down, I saw great chunks of masonry falling from the top of that building. And across the street, the top of Crane's Cafe, there were bricks falling in profusion. And all in all, I doubt if there's any buildings right along in this area but what have had some damage. Probably in a moment you'll see the fire wagons going by. I hear the whistles coming, the sirens blowing. Now, Dyer just told me that the Kneeling Hotel, as old as it is, withstood the shock with the exception of the chimney. From where I am now, I can see that there's just a stub of the chimney left. And some of these older buildings, the top of the Savings and Lawn here, the Olympia Federal Savings, is all shattered and broken. By the way, I wonder how the KGY aerial survived. Did you notice that? It's all right. Well, that's rather unusual. Now, let's see if we can get out of here.
Now, we're going to cruise for a moment up Capitol Way. We're turning at the corner of 4th now.
Oh, I'm sorry. 5th and Capitol Way. I never could remember my directions. Passing by Miller's new store, I see all of the windows are completely shattered. And, of course, some of the molding is very much bent. Up here, we're coming to a couple of policemen. They're going to direct us off Capitol Way. So we're stopped here now, and we'll get a chance to look around us. They're sweeping up the glass around the Miller's building. We're being directed down now again toward Ralph's Food Store. And as we cruise down this way, in masonry, broken glass is the order of the day. I see oranges and grapefruit over the street here in front of Ralph's. The buildings are pretty badly broken out down here at Hartley Paint. And across the street in the United Dairies, there's brick and, oh goodness, great chunks of glass bent in. Looks like it's getting ready to break. And where should we go down here? Let's head back up here
To our left. We'll try and get up on the hill now.
Oh, look at that big, tall chimney. Back of that temple is completely gone, just half broken. It's that big chimney, too. Well, that is part of the heating equipment of the hotel. It's broken completely off. Incidentally, in case we haven't told you, the KGY at the moment is off the air. No power up there at all. I'm wondering what had happened to the Capitol building. From here, it looks all right. The old Capitol building, as Dyer just commented to me now, suffered very much damage, and we'll get over there in just a moment so we can give a close look at that. Well, as we're going up here, we're passing now the Northern Pacific passenger station, No damages here that we can see. Now and then we see simply broken windows in the residential district. And so far, no terrific damage in this particular area. Children are once again playing out here in the schoolyard around the Catholic school. Let's see, nothing seems to be wrong here at the Catholic church. And people seem to be entering back upon their normal scheme of life.
Let's see if we can get around the corner here and get over here by the Capitol Way once again.
They block traffic pretty generally on Capitol Way so that it's hard for us to see any distance. People are streaming along the streets. Here's a residence across from Dietz Business College, with all the chimneys gone there. The bricks are lying out in the street. Now we'll turn the corner here by Dietz's, and International Business Machine has utterly no windows lift in it. And, well, that's all we can see at the moment. We'll cruise on up here. I see that the schools have let out, so that apparently they're not taking any chances with the children being in buildings that are not inspected. Here's several store buildings along here in the what building is that? The Capitol Apartment Building. I see they've closed all the fronts here in many instances and not taking any chances that there may be weakened structure. Here's a big window out of the Capitol Drug. It's completely out, the great section of it. Heavens, if anybody had been close to that when that thing dropped, it would have been too bad. Well, let's get over here to the Capitol buildings. Let's have a look over here, Dyer. I see a flag at a crazy angle up here. Apparently it was badly shifted. Where is that? Over? Yes, the insurance building lost its railing up here completely. Now then, how did our totem pole look? Still okay, isn't it? Well, the main building itself of the Capitol seems okay, but this building over on my right, which one is that? That's the judicial building. I see the railing is all caved in on that with huge hunks of masonry up along the top and plenty of it scattered over the lawn. The statue has withstood the shaking all right enough. And let's see, we'll circle over here in front of the judicial building. We find the front of it looks okay. Masonry is intact. There's a lot of Boy Scouts standing over here. I wonder what they're doing. Cub Scouts they are. They probably were up looking over the grounds. They're not allowing anybody in the buildings at all. I wonder if we couldn't scoot up past the governor's mansion here. Maybe we can have a quick look over there. Everything looks serene. The heating chimney of the Capitol building is still intact. They built that to stay better, apparently. We're going now up through the driveway, approaching the governor's mansion in an effort to see whether or not this particular area suffered any loss. And as we are now passing by the governor's mansion itself, we see no destruction whatsoever. Yes, the bricks on the balcony are dislodged. Here's one of the maids. We can stop and ask her there. Was there any damage up here? Well, I think we could. That's, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stop here for just a moment because one of the maids has told us that the inside of the governor's mansion has been quite badly damaged. And so if it's all right with you, we'll switch off our motor and move our equipment now into the inside of the governor's mansion. We'll resume our conversation at that point. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Larry Dossett once again. Dyer and I changed our mind about taking our equipment into the governor's mansion on account of the difficulty of moving this battery and all the equipment and then, too, invading privacy. But we did go inside and see the governor's mansion and the damage that was done there, which was considerable. Incidentally, for the benefit of everyone listening, there was no one hurt in the governor's mansion in the personnel. We were talking to Mrs. Langley, and she showed us into the ballroom first, and several of the prisms from the overhead chandelier had broken off and were lying across the floor. Then we moved on into the dining room, and again, several prisms from the chandelier had crashed down onto the table. But the real damage was done in the kitchen. That was simply a bedlam of, well, it's a mess. I don't know what else to describe it. The skylight has completely fallen in. There's nothing but splintered debris, and as we looked, the there was streaming hot water coming on through the broken portions of the ceiling, where evidently the hot water heating system had broken and was causing a tremendous bit of damage. They have been warned completely to stay out of the kitchen for fear it will once again cause a great deal of damage by still falling in on anyone that might be there. The governor's mansion will require undoubtedly quite a bit of repair, as well as the other buildings in this particular area. Incidentally, I think perhaps right at the moment we'll desist here, Dyer, till we get started again. We're back now cruising around. We've left the governor's mansion. We're going right past the, what is this building again, Dyer? Insurance building, and there's a tremendous amount of masonry scattered all over the lawn that has fallen from the sides. And there's no estimating to what quantities, but it is a tremendous amount, and it generally has fallen all the way along. That may be a lesson to some of our future architects not to put that kind of masonry atop the buildings. If we're going to get earthquakes in this part of the country, we don't want that type of thing raining down on us. Incidentally, the square buildings that don't have the filigree work along the top are showing the best reaction so far from the outside. We have no means, of course, knowing how they survived the inside. I was talking to Miss Langley, the governor's daughter, a moment ago. She has just come from Lincoln School, grade school, and she says that outside of broken plaster, there was no damage done up there. So any of you folk who haven't interviewed your children as yet probably can comfort yourselves that nobody was hurt in that area. Well, yes, we'll go past the high school now and see if we can see any damage over there. As we approach it here, coming out of the driveway from the Capitol building, the appearance is perfectly okay. There again is a testimony to a wall-built building. And none of the filigree work along the top of the older building over there shows any damage whatsoever. Now we're tied up back of a stoplight here. So, Dyer, if you would just stop us for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're cruising again through the residential district on Franklin here. And as we go past these houses, I can see almost every chimney has received damage of some sort. Every house that we look toward has, the chimneys have simply caved in and there's brick lying all over the streets. And in the main, that seems to be the greatest damage to the residential area. We stopped for just a moment to pick up my small daughter, Zoanne, who had just come from Lincoln grade school, and she said that there was mainly a shaking process up there for all the children, with one girl getting a bit bruised and cut as a result of some objects falling on her. So in the main, we were quite lucky from that standpoint. We're still passing broken down chimneys all over the streets here. We're coming down close to the Baptist church now. We'll have a look at that area, see how well that building withstood. So far, no damage here. The apartment building on my right seems okay, but down there again are still more caved-in chimneys. Chimney certainly took a terrific beating. And, well, as Dyer says, it'll be a bricklayer's holiday around here. Chimney after chimney caved in. Dyer, just a moment. I'd like to go past the old State House here for just a moment and see whether or not the damage has been quite bad on this side. I didn't get a chance to report it on our way up. Then we'll go up on the east side. We're cruising now past the Christian church, and as far as I can see, there's no damage to it being one of the younger buildings, but we're now going past the old State building, and it shows considerable damage, particularly around the corners. The masonry has completely caved off, and incidentally, the whole area has been roped off. Oh, yes, as I look up here on the, what is that, a facade up there? That's all caved in. I can see the ceiling of the old State House has been pretty badly caved in. Here's the State Patrol working here now. And as we come down to the stop sign on Legion Way, I can look down and see the front of the State House on Legion Way is very badly caved in. Great chunks of masonry have caved in. We're going to have to move on now. The patrolman is motioning us on. Let's head out here on Legion for a moment till we get down to some of these larger buildings down in this particular area. Once again, chimneys badly caved in. The traffic is being rerouted apparently from the center of town over here on Legion Way because there's a tremendous concentration of traffic in this particular area. There's some of the older houses down to my left, just beyond the railroad track here. The chimneys are pretty badly caved in and the bricks are streaming all over the roof. We're passing the service stations and over the railroad tracks once again. This particular area looks quite good. The Lincoln Mercury garage doesn't seem to have any particular damage to it. We're cruising now down past the Safeway store on 4th Street, and we notice the complete windows have been broken out of the Safeway store in this particular area. And now we're continuing our way downtown. The damage as we go along seems to be slightly broken masonry and generally some broken windows. It isn't very extensive. It's surprisingly little, I would say. Selden's has a large window broken. I see they're sweeping up as we go past. And the People's store seems to survive very well. I'm rather surprised at that. They have a large expanse of glass. We're creeping along with the heavy traffic here. Our information, we repeat once again that the quake has been terrifically general, and the broadcasts are beginning to come in describing the damage in several areas. But it is surprising, the absence so far of a terrific loss of life. I think we can be extremely thankful that so far that has not occurred. We paused for a moment on 4th and stopped and talked to Officer Walter Steve, who is directing traffic, and he said the only comment he had to make, he wished people would go home because their particular area was certainly not a safe place. There's no guarantee that this thing won't happen again. They generally do come in a succession of waves, and people should stay away from downtown areas. And he said the Willard Hotel, incidentally, was in quite bad shape, and that the Governor Hotel was being evacuated. And in general, that many of these downtown buildings are in bad shape, and people should stay away from them. We'll pass that information along. Please do not come downtown. There's nothing you can do. And if in case of another quake, this particular area is probably in a weakened condition, and there probably could be loss of life. Well, now, this seems to be the report as we have it right at the present time. If there's any other developments, we'll be out on the street and getting the news firsthand for you. This has been Larry Dossett with Dyer Downing operating the controls. I've been driving the car and talking at the same time, so please forgive if the conversation at times seems a bit disjointed, but that's the way it had to be. We return you now to the studio, station KGY, for further news comment.